Hey guys, welcome to the Liberal Hive Mind, a channel solely focused on exposing the abundant hypocrisy of the left. Misinformation, it's a buzzword you hear all the time. And for the most part, this word has been totally monopolized by the Democrats. In the Democrat mind, misinformation only exists on the other side. It's a uniquely right-wing issue, they tell you. That's the main reasoning behind their pro-censorship logic. They're right about everything, and that's why they deserve the right to control and police speech. But of course, you probably know exactly where I'm going. The irony is, Democrats are in no position to police anyone, they're in no position to lecture anyone, because they themselves and their operatives in the media are the biggest misinformation peddlers, the biggest fake news propagandists you'll ever find. And here's yet again another viral example with ABC News' George Stephanopoulos, the guy who pretends to be the newsman on ABC, but really is a Democrat Clinton strategist and operative. Here he goes, just innocently pushing slanderous, horrifying misinformation. We got some stuff to get into, so let's roll the tape. Alright folks, so here's George Stephanopoulos setting up a total trap, a total gotcha on Nancy Mace during his show.
Yes, this morning. And you've endorsed Donald Trump for president. Judges and two separate juries have found him liable for and for defaming the victim of that. How do you square your endorsement of Donald Trump with the testimony we just saw?
Well, I will tell you, I was raped at the age of 16. And any rape victim will tell you, I've lived for 30 years with an incredible amount of shame over being raped. I didn't come forward because of that judgment and shame that I felt. And it's a shame that you will never feel, George. And I'm not going to sit here on your show and be asked a question meant to shame me about another potential victim. I'm not gonna do that.
It's actually not about shaming you. It's a question about Donald Trump.
No, you are shaming me.
You've endorsed Donald Trump for president.
Right.
Donald Trump has been found liable for by a jury. Donald Trump has been found liable for defaming the victim of that by a jury. It's been affirmed by a judge.
It was not a criminal court case, number one. Number two, I live with shame. And you're asking me a question about my political choices, trying to shame me as a victim, and I find it disgusting. And quite frankly, E. Jean Carroll's comments when she did get the judgment, joking about what she was going to buy, it makes it harder for women to come forward when they make a mockery out of when they joke about it.
Doesn't it make it harder for women to come forward when they?
It makes it harder when other women joke about it, and she's joked about it. I find it offensive, and I also find it offensive that you're trying to shame me with this question.
I'm not trying to shame you at all. In fact,
I have dealt with this for 30 years. You know how hard it was to tell my story 5 years ago when they were doing a fetal heartbeat bill and there were no exceptions for incest or rape or incest in there? I had to tell my story because no other woman was coming forward. No victims were represented. And you're trying to shame me this morning.
I'm just asking.
And I find it offensive, and this is why women won't come forward.
Women won't come forward because they're defamed by those who perpetrate. Donald Trump
they are judged and they're shamed, and you're trying to shame me this morning. I think it's disgusting.
I'm not shaming you at all.
I told my story. It took me 25 years to tell my story. I was judged for it. I still get judged for it today.
I'm asking you a very simple question.
Yeah, that's the news. That's the garbage being pushed by networks that have the privilege of being titled authoritative news sources. Does that sound like a neutral journalist just trying to get to the actual truth? Or is that a Democrat operative pushing the deep state's campaign talking points in an attempt to destroy Donald Trump's character and then by proxy shame anybody who associates with him? And that part right at the end there, that zinger that George Stephanopoulos tried to get in.
Women won't come forward because they're defamed by those who perpetrate.
They are judged and they're shamed, and you're trying to shame me this morning. I think it's disgusting.
He thought he was being slick with that one, but in that statement he showed exactly who he is. He's there to take sides and take the other side down while pretending to present himself as just the news guy. Just the news guy, essentially acting like a DNC lawyer while interacting with Republican politicians. And what's really crazy to me is just the lows that Democrats are willing to go to. Like what we see when they weaponize mass casualty events where the lives of young school children are lost. They stand on the graves of those children, weaponizing those events for their own political gain, and in this case doing the same thing, essentially weaponizing something as horrible as RAPE just so they could attack Republicans in an election year. Everyone knows E. Jean Carroll's story isn't credible. A Democrat manufactured hoax. The audacity of these people to take something so sensitive and use it as a political weapon. I think it's pretty obvious what's going on here. And the lack of neutrality, the deception tactics are obviously bad enough, but what's worse, the absolute worst part, is that George Stephanopoulos is straight up lying. Donald Trump was found guilty. But notice how he plays a little word game there. He's careful. Instead of saying Donald Donald Trump was found guilty of RAPE, he stated Trump was found liable of RAPE and of, quote, defaming an RAPE victim. Absolute fake news. We have the verdict form. Did Mrs. Carroll prove by a preponderance of evidence that Mr. Trump RAPE'd Miss Carroll? The answer was no. Very clearly, the check mark here is on the no. Yet George Stephanopoulos will straight up lie to millions of people and then attempt to use that lie to shame Nancy Mace for her association with Donald Trump. I mean, we are talking about a malicious level of dishonesty. These are the manipulative games that the media plays. Set a bogus narrative and then shame everybody into conforming. Honestly, I'm just gonna say it, this is what has Republican politicians on a leash a lot of the times. Too scared to say what's truly based, too scared to say what's really true, because they know the media is gonna rip them up for it. They know that if they tell too much truth, they're gonna become public enemy number one, just like Donald Trump, and every apparatus of power is gonna be weaponized to destroy you. Our democracy being under threat, this is what they mean. When they talk about this rise of extremism that must be suppressed, extremist outlets spreading misinformation. When Brian Stelter said the quiet part out loud, just how dangerous it is to do your own research.
4 little words that are hurting America's pandemic response. Right, and that's the problem. Do your own research. Everybody has a supercomputer in their hand that empowers them to do their own research, which is great, right? Isn't it? But this go-it-alone approach, doing your own research, it seems so innocent, but it can have serious consequences.
Leftist Canadian fascist Justin Trudeau also recently said this.
There is out there a deliberate undermining of mainstream media. There are the conspiracy theorists, there are the social media drivers who are trying to do everything they can to keep people in their little filter bubbles, to prevent people from actually agreeing on a common set of facts, the way, the CBC and CTV, when they were our only sources of news, used to project across the country at least a common understanding of things.
When they're talking about this threat to democracy, this threat of fascism, this misinformation threat, what they really mean is a threat to their control over the flow of information, their ability to build narratives, and then of course use and weaponize those narratives. This guy, George Stephanopoulos, is a Clinton Democrat operative, and here he is spreading actual malicious, slanderous fake news as he pretends to be a journalist. This is the guy who worked for and still works for the same Democrats flying on private jets, doing tours, giving speeches about the threats of misinformation. The same people who push constantly debunked nonsense. The Russia hoax, their fake debunking of the Hunter Biden laptop as Russian disinformation, the story about Russian bounties on American soldiers' heads, the Very Fine People hoax, the French World War Memorial hoax. The list goes on and on. The same people warning us about misinformation are the greatest purveyors of misinformation, and of course, the most harmful kinds of misinformation. Yet again, more evidence, more compiling evidence. I think it's pretty clear at this point. Anyways, that's what I got for you guys on this one. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to leave a like and possibly subscribe. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.